Starting the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee meeting at 5:33 p.m. And let's start with a roll call.
Chair Rob Weltman, Vice Chair Danielle Kanahele, Toba Callender, Everett Dowling, Vernon Kalanikau, Randall Leach, Mike Moran, Brian Ward, Cody Nemitz, Wayne Ishiki, Kyoki Paltzer, Jennifer Sullivan, and let the record show that Lehu Anani is excused this evening.
Thank you. Vilina mai e nā lalo ke kumike o lalo o kaya ulu no ka papa ho lala no Maui hama. A vilina mai no hoi e ka poe o ke ena ho o lala o ke kanana o Maui a me ka lehu lehu o Maui nei. E kukaka ko e ke iahi ahi ina ina hapana o Maui hema. Let's see, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Here we go. So we're working on land use designations for sub-area 2, which is sometimes called North Kihei, but actually if you look at the map, it goes all the way from the Central Maui Base Yard down to Waipuilani Gulch. Now this is a continued meeting from May 10th, and the rules for oral testimony are different from a regular meeting. So someone who testified on the topic of North Kihei last week will not be able to testify on that topic today. And that's the only topic we're accepting testimony for. If you are testifying remotely, please do not turn off your speaker. Watch the meeting coordinator to signal when you're at 2.5 minutes and at the full 3 minutes of testimony time, unless you're keeping track of the time yourself. So testimony will be limited to 3 minutes with 1 minute to respond to follow-up questions. And before we get into things, we have a couple of other housekeeping matters. Vernon has a few things to present.
Hello, council members. So we all got that wonderful letter from Director Aoki. You know, we treating that however we like treat that. I'm challenged. I'm struggle with that. Most of you are. So you know, with the West Maui plan and then we doing the draft for the South Maui. What I having hard time with is the West Maui plan is setting precedents for the rest of Maui. The only thing I want to say is, you know, how that West Maui plan going to help the South Maui plan, which is divided, Mauka to Makai. Our Moko is divided. Yeah, you know, you hear that all the time in districts. How the West Maui plan going to help South Maui's plan dealing with our runoff, our watershed issues that we have. How that plan going to help our plan? Yeah, you know, planning, they trying to keep things consistent, but I think that's one issue when you have West Maui setting precedents and it might not align with our issues that we have to deal with here in South Maui. So if there's a certain designation, for example, smart, not smart, but small town center, maybe not over there, maybe we got to move them depending on the area and what's there already. So my challenge is, you know, I mean, we just kind of can put the West Maui and the South Maui community plan. And my struggle is, you know, how much of our input going to hold up. And then on top of that, it's going to go to Planning Commission. I think there's still no more one rep, yeah, from South Maui. There's no more rep from South Maui. You know, so we on the short end of the stick, you know, for South Maui for a long time. Hence, this is why South Maui is the way it is today. That's all I wanted to say.
Mike?
I want to announce that this past Monday there was a public meeting. Our South Maui council member had a town hall meeting, and I'm sure there were 3 of CPAC members attended. So I think for the sunshine laws, we have to make that announcement, and then if anybody has questions or comments. So it was Vernon and our vice chair and myself. I don't believe anybody else was at that one. Oh, no, you were Monday? Not Monday. So he wasn't there Monday. So anyway, 3 of us, and that's the number, right? If there's 3, we have to announce it, and if anybody has any questions or comments.
Any questions or comments on Tom Cook's Monday meeting? Go on.
Okay, and then one more. Last evening, we had a larger group at the KCA general membership meeting. I won't list off all the people because I'll probably forget somebody, but I think there were 5 or 6 of us were there. And again, it wasn't directly related to CPAC. Some of the issues that came up were South Maui issues, but I don't feel there's anything in jeopardy. It's just that we all attended. And I guess it's easy to just ask people who attended, raise their hand, and then we'll get the correct names and the number of people who were at that meeting. So again, unless anybody has a question or a comment about that, I just want to make that announcement. Thank you.
Any questions or comments about the KC meeting yesterday? Okay. We may need to talk a little bit about that letter from the director. So that was a question I had too. So 2 years ago, I wrote to the then director of planning department, and I asked her who decides whether or not the West Maui land use designations will be used in the South Maui community plan. And she says, "Oh, that's the CPAC." And I have that in writing. So that's what we've been going after. So I don't think we should pay any attention to that letter. But anyway, we've already finished pretty much the land use designation. So I wanted to say a few words too, just in general, because I think there's something missing in our discussion so far. A lot of the time we talk about development versus non-development, and we're not and we spent a lot of time talking about protecting our environment, protecting the water quality, native plants, things like that. And those are things I care deeply about. And I think a lot of people in Maui know that because I spend a lot of my time working on those things. But I also care a lot about the people in Maui. And the reason we're talking about development at all, from my perspective, is not because we care about allowing for more mainland people to buy luxury houses here. We're talking about it because we have so many people who are forced to leave the island and in many cases never come back. In my case, I was schooled by someone 7 years ago who told me about how he's the 5th generation on Maui. All of his children, all of his grandchildren have left because none of them can afford to buy a place to stay in on Maui. And that means that for the holidays, he's alone. And most of the holidays, he's alone. Now, that's tragic for him, and I'm sure you'll agree with that, but that's tragic for his kids too, because they lose their connection with Hawaii. They lose their connection with the culture. They lose their connection with the ohana. That's tragic too. And it's even worse than that because, in my opinion, because we lose those people who could be helping to make Maui a better place. When we go out and for example, when the planning department commissions a study or any other government agencies commission a study, most of the time that goes to some company in California. We have young people from Maui who have gone and trained in these things, but they don't come back. They can't afford to live here. Think how much better Maui would be if a couple thousand of those who had to leave during the last 10 years stayed or came back with their education. And we might have a more diversified economy. They might have started businesses. They might have taken some of these 700 unfilled positions in the government, the county government. So that's important to me. So when we're talking about development, no development, that's not the issue for me. The issue for me is how can we make it possible for Maui residents and Maui children to stay on the island. And that's the first thing. Second thing is planning. So we talked a little bit, or actually Randy testified last time about the area of Kihei Mauka and about how Kihei was developed pretty much without a plan. The only thing we really have that's in progress right now that's kind of planned is the Maui Research and Technology Park. Everything else is just bit by bit, unplanned. No connections, no plans for recreation, for schools. Everything comes after the fact, if ever. And so that's why I think planning has a value in itself, doing master planning. And then finally, I want to say, some people, we've had testimonies that Maui doesn't need walkable communities. We don't need to be able to walk. Everyone drives, and everyone's going to drive in the future. When we bought our house 23 years ago, that was one of my criteria. I had to be able to walk and buy groceries. I don't want to have to get in the car just to buy milk. So we can walk to the grocery, two or three of them actually. We can walk to, we used to be able to walk to pharmacy. We can walk to several restaurants, many other things like that. I don't want to have to sit in my car. So you can have a walkable community, and that's a better community. Yes, you can choose to live far from everyone else. That's a good choice if that's your interest. But if you choose to live in town, you probably want to be able to have these things nearby. That's one of the reasons you choose that. So for me, walkable communities are possible, and it's a high value in itself. So I don't usually talk that much, but I just wanted to set the stage for what we're going to be talking about for the rest of today. So at this point, I'm going to open, comment, Mike?
Yes, I just wanted to, because we have people, in the community watching now that we have, that the meeting is being out. A lot of people in the community won't know what we're talking about, what this letter was. And I don't know whether by sunshine law, if we would discuss it tonight anyway, because it's not on the agenda. But the timing of that letter prohibited the public from testifying on it, whether they had opinions about it or not. So my feeling is that because, again, people are hearing what letter are they talking about, I think we should have a discussion on it next week when there would be time for community input. People would have time to read the letter and see what we're talking about if we're going to proceed with it. If we're just going to drop it, that's fine. But I feel that, this is a community plan, and I just want to make sure our community is aware of what's going on. Mahalo.
You're actually right. So the letter is published on the We Are South Maui website, so it means it is public announcement. But of course, how many people are checking that every day to know that there's something new there? Okay, with that, I would like to open for public testimony on. Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot. Okay, Tova's up.
South Maui's beaches, coastal waters, and wetlands are restored and thriving. With affordable housing close to good jobs, and with a variety of transportation options, including safe walking, biking paths lined with trees, woohoo, regional neighborhoods, businesses, and parks are connected. And we can maintain now I'm flubbing because I'm looking at Karen's face. We can maintain a small town lifestyle. Cultural resources are protected and celebrating, enhancing South Maui's sense of place. So I have to actually give it to Daniel that it was a very good exercise, and it does enhance the sense of ownership for what we're doing, and it did change how I was reflecting on preparing for this meeting. So with that, I invite that next lucky person to memorize the vision statement for our plan and enjoy that deepened experience. And if you don't volunteer, whose birthday is in the summer? I guess I'm going to assign. Okay, Kyoki, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so any testifiers on the North Kihei sub-area who did not testify last time? Do we have anyone on Blue Jeans who wants to testify on that topic?
I would like to. Dick Mayor. Can you hear me?
Land use designations in North Gihei.
Can you hear me? Dick Mayor. Can you hear me?
I just wanted to say two things that I heard from Rob when he was speaking earlier. That's number one about housing. And the reason why people are having to leave is because even the affordable housing or the workforce housing is not affordable, truly not affordable for just about anybody that I know. So, when we talk about development and we want to keep our families here, we need to be real about what kind of pricing we're talking about and what kind of development we're talking about. A lot of places or developers claim to be affordable and they're not. And that is a problem because they're pushed through by a lot of different agencies and government departments because we need housing. But we need the right kind of housing. We can't just take any kind of housing, and especially in South Maui. The other topic was about development should not happen now or ever until proper infrastructure is in place. So if there's no plan for infrastructure, there should be no more development in any areas of South Maui because we cannot take it. We cannot take any more. We cannot take on any more houses, cars, flooding, developments of any kind until the infrastructure is in place. Thank you.
Any clarifying questions for the testifier? Thank you. Oh, Daniel had a question.
Hi, Brandy. Thank
Hi,
you
Dan.
for testifying, I think, on two topics that we all care about: affordable housing, workforce housing, and infrastructure. So we've had some affordable housing projects come up and workforce housing, I believe, rentals and to own that you may be familiar with. Do you think locals, when you say affordable, do you mean rentals, places to rent and places to buy?
Of course. Everybody's dream is to own their own home, and we can't do it. Our children, my children, everybody's children, we're priced out. We've said it over and over again. So just building houses for somebody is not helping anybody.
And my follow-up question is, what is affordable for locals from your perspective? What is
From my
affordable?
perspective, I mean, it also has to do with sizing because I was told by my dental hygienist that she went to go buy or rent. I'm not sure what those houses, I think they were to purchase over there by off of Ohukai. And she took her 4 children. She's a single mother. And I guess she could afford it, so to say. But when they walked into it, her children even said, "Where are we going to sleep, Mom?" Because it's very tiny. So, I mean, when you talk about pricing, I mean, you can't sell a little tiny box for, $400,000. I mean, it's $400,000 is already expensive for any local person. I have to say that, especially young people who are not established in their lives. When I bought my place, I wouldn't have even been able to afford, I wouldn't have been able to afford a house either if it was that much, put it that way. So I'm I'm saying that it's probably less than that, but just to be, you know, just to be on the higher side, 400,000 would be max. We're talking 500, 600, or if you can get it less than that, for $380,000, you can get a 400 square foot home that you're purchasing on Savio's development on the Waipoulani Gulch. That's what you can get. And that's no room for expansion, no room for having a yard or having anything like that, sense of that. Thank you.
Any further questions for the testifier? Okay. Any new testifiers?
Dick Mayer, but he did testify in the first meeting, but he said he got cut off, so I'm going to leave that up to you.
I think we had the testimony there. Okay. With that, concluding testimony and beginning the deliberations. So,
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to revisit the small town center definition that we had adopted at the last meeting. That was taken from the Kihei McKenna Community Plan. And if we can pull up the Kihei McKenna Community Plan.
so we need a second first before we do that. Second by Mike.
And we're looking at the designations for business multifamily. That's the definition that was used. So let me get to that. Maybe page part 5 land use map, page 55. For those of you who have your own Kihei McKenna Community Plan. Oh, gosh, can hardly see that. Okay, got my right glasses on. So anyway, this is the definition that we as a committee adopted as a definition for small town center. And so I'm going to like to amend the language, and I gave Karen the language for the amended version, which is that one paragraph that reads, "This includes a mixture of retail, office, and commercial uses which are oriented to neighborhood services, comma, and low to medium density residential uses. Buildings within this designation shall be limited in size, so the resulting uses serve a surrounding I think I missed something. Buildings within this, sorry, Karen, I missed buildings within this area designation should be limited in size to 35 feet, a height of 35 feet. After, shall be limited in size to a height of 35 feet. Sorry to mess you up there. Okay, and then the rest is so the resulting uses serve a I'm sorry, buildings within this district shall be limited in size. So the resulting uses serve a surrounding residential neighborhood of up to 100 acres. So, and then the next sentence below says these, it's not part of the definition, but I've just put in these designations should be concise so that they are very clear to planners when they use them. So yeah, that's the amended language. One of the issues I have with the other definition, it's very wordy and vague. And I think it's important, as we've discussed, for the planners to know precisely what we're talking about, to be more detailed. And I found I think we had a lot of trouble with this particular designation. I mean, this is how many meetings have we talked about this? From May 3rd, right? From May 3rd, every meeting from May 3rd, we've been talking about this. So obviously, there's some challenges for some of us with the small town center. So, and I'm calling out a size as to the area it serves because I can't see designating hundreds and hundreds of acres to small town center. I see it more as node within an area rather than a whole geographic. So a polygon, right? That's how I see it. So I'm hoping we can use this language to discuss this designation and maybe get closer to what we're trying to achieve and what's bothering some of us on the committee with some of these designations. So I've got to say that's what I'm amending my motion, amending the original motion to read as follows. Okay, thank you.
Daniel, question. The 35 feet, are you talking about height?
Yes, so that, it's height. Building with this designation should be limited size to 35 feet in height. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Randall. Tova.
So,
Thanks for bringing this back and for adding more definition to it. I like where this is going because of that. One question I have is in looking what was dropped from the original list of permitted uses, is this public, quasi-public uses like parks and schools and churches? And I guess I'm wondering why we would want to drop that out. Because so long as these are nodes and they're limited to a polygon, and the intention is that they're facing the community and not the broader, is there a reason why we wouldn't want to have, say, a central park that becomes a feature of that area where people connect? Or if there's a church or a small, preschool or something, is that problematic? Why wouldn't we want to have that included in that planning area?
I don't know. I'm open to friendly amendments.
same thing for the mixed commercial residential, allowing residential on top of commercial, like at Kainani, or Kayani, I mean. And then why would you not want to limit the retail office commercial uses to low and medium density? Why would you want to allow high density for those?
Well, I think some of sometimes I find the definitions are wordy because it calls out everything. Every single thing is called out in every single definition. I don't know if planners need to have everything called out because this services a neighborhood, right? So you're orientated to neighborhood services. So
So what's the difference between this and the neighborhood center?
To me, it's more concise. And the last paragraph, the last sentence, that's not part of the definition. So you can.
But what's the difference between this designation and the neighborhood center designation?
What is the difference? What difference do you see?
You tell me, because you remove the you made this serve neighborhoods. So this has become neighborhood center.
This is a discussion. So if you want to distinguish it in other ways, then what do you want to add? What do you want to change?
Wanted to add some thoughts. So, going off of what Brandy was saying earlier, I'm having trouble thinking of how I'm gonna vote because how do we ensure that we prioritize the infrastructure of these areas while still trying to zone for developing these areas? Like how do we how do we yeah what I said basically, how do we prioritize um, that for South Maui our problems are within our infrastructure. That is what we're facing right now, and so we're here trying to zone out how these places are going to be developed. That's not the issue. So how in choosing um, one of these things, how do we ensure that our priorities are with the infrastructure before any of these things take place?
Tova?
Cody, I've been struggling with the same thing. And so I've been talking to people who are smarter than me to try to get a sense of like, wait, what? Because it's so separate from it. And what I have gleaned from talking to people and thinking about it more is that's something that we cover during policy. So agreeing on the definitions just gives us a common kind of rubric for the landscape, but then things like sequencing, we kind of covered in the policies, but I'm hoping that when we come back and revisit those policies, we are doubling down now that we're actually seeing what it's looking like on a map. We're doubling down to make sure our language is tight. So we are prioritizing the things we want to see happen in the right order, like infrastructure before more housing. I'm keen to hear other people's thoughts because, like I said, I've been polling to try and understand this better myself.
Yeah, so I'm afraid that I'm going to vote for something and that is going to open a can of worms um, and continue more of the same thing because, like Vernon was saying earlier, we're using some sort of template that, like how Brandy was saying, we got different issues that we're dealing with right now. And so that is my concern. And I don't know how I'm going to vote for these things thinking about that.
So do it this way. Think about the Azika Lipoa South Kihei Road Business Center. What would you like to see there? Would you like to see small businesses? Would you like to see some mixed commercial residential? Would you like it be possible to have a kindergarten there? That's the kind of thing we're answering with this. So what are the things? What are the things you want to see? What are the things you don't want to see in the future in an area like that?
No, I get that. I understand that. What I'm saying is, I can vote on that, but what I'm saying is there's a priority of um, making sure that our infrastructure is looked at before any of these things. And so, by voting, am I saying that no, that whenever these opportunities for permits come along, that they can continue doing that and not um, focus on infrastructure, things like that. And Tova kind of brought up, our policies and things like that. I would just like to see some assurance in how we vote for this, that that we for South Maui, for these areas, that we can ensure that our priorities are with our infrastructure if we're going to vote for this.
Mike?
Yeah, I think everybody seems to be consistently concerned with that issue about the infrastructure. And there's only so much we can do. You know, we can't, we're not going to implement the plan. We're going to submit our plan. Then there are two other bodies that are going have the ability to change our plan, even if we think it's perfect. And then after all that's done, somebody else is going to come along in government, elected officials. So all we can do is our part. I mean, we see that in this little plan, says that infrastructure concurrent with development. Well, it didn't happen. And I questioned the prior mayor one time at a public meeting. Isn't that a violation of the plan? He said no. He just kind of shrugged it off. Well, I think that's the only thing that we can do afterwards is try and vote in for people that are going to do what the community really wants. But I think our decisions on picking these, we really can't control that aspect. That's how I try and approach it. Kind of give it your best shot and hope that others down the line are going to do the right thing. So that's my perspective. Thank you.
Daniel?
Just a couple of things. So on the small sound center proposed areas, which Rob was really great. He passed all these maps out so we could see where they were proposing to have these. So if you look at it, the small town center, everything Makai of Pi'ilani Highway and along Waile Ike are already existing business and commercial centers. Those exist. Almost everything, except along Lipoa. And then most of the proposed small town centers above Pi'ilani Highway and then out towards McKenna aren't built yet. They don't exist yet. Just so you know, yeah. So there are business centers that already exist that are proposed for small town centers, and there are areas that don't exist yet that are proposed for possible small town centers. And Rob is right, because the amendment I made is very close to the neighborhood center. It's pretty close to being a neighborhood center. And so I think one of the issues that I think is being pulled out of this discussion is the concern with the increasing mixed uses and densities. And that's kind of troubling, I think, especially Malka Pi'ilani Highway. So I think that's bothering me a little bit, and maybe some of you a little bit. Because as you go up from neighborhood center to small town center and then employment center, density increases, right? So maybe, I mean, I'm just my opinion, maybe we're liking something more like neighborhood centers, densities, more than small town centers in areas that are being proposed for small town centers. Just my thoughts.
Well, just, I don't know, maybe this clarifies. So I walk to a couple times a week to Hawaiian Moon, sometimes ABC, and then a little bit and less often to Foodland because it's further away. Foodland serves a wider area. Safeway we go to maybe once a week. We drive there; it's further away. But Safeway definitely serves a much larger area than Hawaiian Moon. I doubt that there are that many people who drive just to get to Hawaiian Moon. So that's kind of the difference in my mind between a neighborhood center and a small town center. The types of things that are in one and not the other.
So those already exist. Those are small, I guess could be called small town centers. So you committee members, do you envision something like that happening in areas that aren't developed right now, having something like, Foodland and Times in other areas besides where they exist? Because we're trying to think of our preferred future and what we want to see, right? So do we want to see Times and Foodland above Pi'ilani Highway? And maybe do we want to see it out in McKenna, something of that scale? So that's a question we have to ask ourselves.
I think we can resolve that when we get there. I mean, to McKenna. And I definitely have opinions about whether or not we want one MOC of the highway. But I think we do need that where it is on PEK. I think it serves a great purpose there.
Okay, then let's work with what I've proposed, the amendment, and then if you guys want to change it, let's do it. Okay, so we have something to work with, so it's up to the committee to do what they would like to do with it.
Brian?
So I guess I'm just a little confused based on the letter that we received. Are we just ignoring it and I just don't want us to put a whole bunch of time in and then all of that get thrown out because it's going to get ignored. So do we have guidance from either council or planning on how we should be addressing this? Because we could spend the whole entire night to come up with some great things. And if it's all going to be cast aside, then I guess I want to know that now so that if we're going to be told this is what you're going to deal, this is the language you have to use, then let's at least formulate our decisions on that. And if we can modify, then great, let's go down that path. But it seems kind of foolish to me to just kind of discount that letter and not acknowledge it without some guidance, because I just don't know which way we should go.
Yeah, I can speak to the letter in case individuals have not read it. The planning department issued a letter recently to the CPAC members, basically stating the position of the department that the community plan designations that were created during the West Maui community plan and brought forth to council for approval was anticipated to be as a template for the eventual updates for the other community plans. So our position that we requested of the CPAC was to, again, if we wanted to change sort of the format to make it easier, that's fine, but the actual change in the names and the definitions, we were requesting not to. The position is that we would not be supporting it. Again, to a certain degree from an administrative standpoint, again, trying to find some general land use patterns that we could accept, and knowing that as the eventual zoning code would be updated, those would be really defining better maximum heights, setbacks, if they're design criteria. Often that's going to be the more geographically based components to guide development versus something that would be sort of a high level land use pattern. So again, I understand that not everybody here agrees with that. Again, it's up to the CPAC to decide what you would like to do, but from the department's perspective, we were concerned with it. Just from a practical standpoint, where does it end? Do we go and customize zoning for every single community plan? Do we customize building code? It may not achieve what we want, trying to craft something at this level when we get down to actual building heights, which isn't going to be dictated by the code or by this plan.
So would the recommendation potentially be that we take some of this language of heights and some of that structure and create policies around that? So that way, at least it's in our community plan saying our policy states we don't want over 35 feet height, and define it there versus trying to redefine it in the zone types.
That could be an approach. And again, it was just from, the land use designation names and the definitions, trying to get some consistency, but also acknowledging that yes, we don't anticipate wanting to have South Maui look and feel like West Maui or Upcountry. Again, we totally empathize and agree with that each community does have a different trajectory based upon the community desire.
Based on what you guys have said, maybe some of the areas should be neighborhood center, which is what you're basically trying to redescribe small town center as. But using the designations and how Rob had them formatted so that they're easier to understand and see the uses.
At this point, I think all the designations are completely compatible with what was proposed by the planning department and what's used in the West Maui plan, except for this one. And I don't really see a reason for this one being this different. The language is actually much more clear and specific in the South Maui Community Plan draft. I mean, why would you not want to have these things like civic spaces, parks, and schools in a small town center? People who live in Pi'ilani Village, for example, and they shop at Safeway, why not have a little school there? As a matter of fact, they have a school there. So I don't know. It seems like this is a much better description of a small town center. And yes, if you don't want a small town center, you can have a neighborhood center, but just don't redefine small town center to be a neighborhood center. You're kind of losing something there. Go ahead.
You're referring to, can you put that back up, Karen? When you're talking, you're referring to this, not to what Daniel was suggesting.
Exactly.
Thank you for the clarification. So if we agree that this is a better description and definition, could I make a friendly amendment to incorporate this into your motion?
Okay, for some of you who weren't here when we first talked about this, and I don't know if you watch the videos of this discussion to help you, kind of backfill what you missed. But we didn't adopt it. There were reasons why we didn't adopt it. There weren't enough votes to support it, and there were members here that didn't vote to support it, and there were some who abstained. But there weren't enough yes votes. And so when we came back last week, I believe, the noes were asked to come up with an alternative. So the alternative, I think you were here last week, right, Jen? So we came up with an alternative, which was we fell back on the Kihei McKenna Community Plan, the language in there. And that passed. Now we're going back to the old original language. And some of you seem to like that. But to me, we've gone around this circle 3 times now, and obviously there are issues with something. We're not all happy with it. Otherwise, this would have passed a couple weeks ago. So I think we need to work it out, and people here who felt strongly about it when we voted on the first time and we voted on last week, I hope you will share your thoughts and feelings about it as we continue with this discussion. But you can still make a friendly amendment. You're going to substitute what was there originally for the existing amendment. I don't think I'll go with that. You want to use what was there from the recommended proposal from the planning department. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Can you put that back up, Karen? I wanted to clarification. So Karen had the original definition with some revisions. With the bottom portion of permitted uses, the bullet points that Rob added, that. So that's what I'm asking to go to that, because correct me if I'm wrong, did we vote on this actual with all these red? We did. with all the red additions.
I think that the big problem is that we never got an explanation for why people voted against this. There was never an explanation of that. So I think the problem is that we never got an explanation for why people voted against this. What was wrong with it?
True, people maybe didn't speak as much as they could have to the motion.
Everett?
Can we call for the vote on Daniel's motion?
Yes, we can do that. I think we're ready for that. Okay. Those in favor of Daniel's motion, please raise your hand. And those against? Okay, and those abstaining? Okay, so I'm voting against, so. So motion fails. Can we have a new motion? Everett?
I move that we go back to the originally proposed language for a small town center.
Second by Jennifer. Discussion.
I think this provides a more detailed description that maintains the height at 35 feet, which seems like there's a consensus on the 35 feet. And it serves a small area.
Mike?
I just want to clarify so I don't sound like I'm completely convoluted. When I second Daniel's motion, that was a motion to revisit it. I wasn't necessarily in favor of it. I did vote in favor of it because I thought it was an attempt to do it. But originally, I thought this was the better one. So I know it probably sounds like we had a presidential candidate one time who said that. I was for it before I was against it. And then, boy, he lost a lot of votes. So when I was seconding Daniel's motion, it was to revisit it. And I actually thought we had to vote and say, yes, we are going to revisit the thing. So I just wanted to clarify it. But I would, at this point, I would vote in favor of Everett's motion. Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. Those in favor of the motion by Everett, please raise your hand. It's on the screen. Good. And those against? And Vernon abstained. Vernon abstained? Abstained. Okay, so I find there's 6 yes and 1 abstain, so the motion passes.
Chair, can I ask a
Yes.
procedural question? Lahu is not here. Does she have an affirmative vote on these? Are you counting that?
No, we just have to have a vote of 7, which is a quorum. It's regardless of how they're participating.
Okay.
So we're a little bit confused about that in the beginning, where there's a majority of the present, a majority of the potential, but is majority of the potential, so 7. Okay, so we are done with the designations, and incidentally, and this is definitely not my goal, but incidentally, we're also in conformity with the request of of the planning department. And with that, we're going over into the sub area of North Kihei. And could we get on the screen the sub area North Kihei designation changes map? So we're starting from the top. Number one is along Maui Veterans Highway. And so the first thing at the very top is the Central Maui Base Yard. And as you can see from the drawing, on the left we have the 1998 plan. In the middle we have what was proposed in the Maui Island plan. And on the right we have what's proposed in the draft South Maui Community Plan. Yeah.
Sorry, point of order. What was the vote count again?
Six yea, 4 no, 1 abstained. Actually, 2 abstained because I didn't vote.
You're gonna probably need to vote. You need 7 votes.
Abstain is counts as yes. But I can vote.
Sorry, there was one. There was 6 yeses and 1 abstain.
Yes.
My apologies.
Okay, so just a little background there. So, so we have testimony by Robert Stoner. As a matter of fact, I would like to suggest that we have Robert Stoner as a resource person so we can direct questions to him, and also that we accept Rory as a resource person, and also, yeah, I guess those ones for this one, because I think we're going to have questions for them, including about this particular topic. Any objections? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm paraphrasing you, Robert, but the yeah, so the idea was that he has demand for increased light industrial, and the central and then the one in the middle there that was in the Maui Island plan is larger at the bottom. It extends below the gulch, and that would give them more future. The downside then is we don't really know that there's demand for that. And we had testimony last time that from Robin Knox that there's an important gulch that goes through. There's probably cultural artifacts, and you don't want to just have light industrial spread out there without taking care of that. For the Kihei and for other parts of that we're going to be looking at, what they've done instead is they have an open space corridor that goes through an area which is residential or neighborhood center, for example. So I'm envisioning that if we do make this whole area, as in the one in the middle, industrial, then there would be a corridor like that to preserve the gulch. Can someone from planning department comment on that, if that's a feasible way to address it?
You do already have a policy about gulches in the plan, which would address the gulch.
We do, but in for Kihei and several other areas, there are actually open space corridors laid out just to completely avoid them.
So you wanted to add the buffer.
If we decide to expand it, I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah. So vote to add the area with the buffer.
If the committee feels that we should do that. So I'll entertain a motion on that, either to adopt what's proposed, the draft, or to make a change, including going back to the Maui Island plan map.
The red outline is Maui Island plan, and the dark purple is the industrial designation for that area.
Would it be possible to put up my slides so people can see all 3 of them right next to each other? It's not in there.
What was the title of the file you wanted me to open?
The sub-area North Kihei proposed changes in land use. Yeah, you're missing. That's not the latest one. You're missing the Central Maui base, Central Maui, the Maui Island Plan one in the middle. So if you could get the latest one, it'd be great. But anyway, I think have you guys seen it? So you know what we're talking about here. Okay. Okay. Comments, and I'd like a motion for one or the other. Yes.
Question of planning department. How many acres are in this plan that he's asking for motion tonight? Are we going to urbanize?
Let me find it just a second.
Yeah, would you mind answering that question? How many? So we have these three options. We have what's currently there. We have what's proposed in the Maui Island Plan. Then we have what's proposed in the South Maui Community Plan. So how many acres in each?
So the county general plan was 110 additional acres. The South Maui plan is 65 acres, which is kind of that purple area that isn't developed yet. So the total that I requested was 110. That was on the general plan. If I could touch on one thing on the Gulch, just so, sorry. Oh, in getting our zoning with the Land Use Commission, we have to preserve the Gulch. We have to report annually on that. We protect it. So I share your concerns in that and understand the greater concern. The other thing I would also add on demand is, although we're in the Kihei district, we, hence the name Central Maui Base Yard, provide services throughout the island for people for locations. So it's not just to service Kihei as well. So I just want to point that out. But does that answer the question regarding the acreage?
That's not my question.
Oh.
I'm asking planning department, Kie Malka.
Oh.
How many acres are being planned for urbanization?
Okay, we'll discuss that in a little bit because right now you're focusing on the Central Maui Base Yard, just to stay focused.
Sorry.
Yeah, but we did a motion though, so we can move on this. Daniel?
Just clarifying question. So it's all purple. So the additional acreage is the slightly different purple
It's
to
not on,
the
it's not
to
on,
the north.
It's not on there. It's below. It's just south of that.
Is this what the planning department is recommending? That is that the 64, 66, something like that? How many?
In this area right here, this is the additional 66. Is that what you said?
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Where it's undeveloped. And then down here inside the red line, this is the Maui Island plan, where Maui Island plan envisioned the expansion.
So that would bring it to 110?
Yes. So
Yeah,
that's like the other side of the skull tray.
Okay, so how many is it? 68 acres that the planning, the county, what is the proposed recommendation? 66, 68? 66, okay. So So it runs right up to that road, right? That the Cane Hall Road to, I guess that's east, right? And then it's north, north, and then east, and the south is a gulch. What is, Mr. Stoner? What is the name of the gulch? Ah, that's Pulejo Gulch. Okay. Oh, it's a significant gulch. You've seen it run, huh? Yeah. That carries a lot of water. Mr. Stoner, how much, what is the buffer zone between the gulch and the Bayshard? Approximately how many feet?
Currently, our property goes from the down, so where the gulch rises and goes down is our zone in the current base yard. Don't forget, this goes back to 19. There was work over there in the 60s and 70s. Our portion of it goes into 1980 when we started. So we have a fence line that runs along the top of the gulch.
On the top,
Yeah.
And the fence line, how far from the fence line are buildings, structures?
Oh, I would say the closest building, probably being Truss Systems, is probably 50 feet.
That's pretty close to the gulch. I would expect a wider buffer.
Well, again, today there probably would be a wider buffer. I mean, just where we are.
Back then, not so much.
Back then, it's this was actually a lot of use in that area. It was during World War II, and the military had a lot of operations over in that area as well. So, I understand what you're saying, but I think at the time we were at a different time. So,
Oh, yeah, I understand what you're saying. And just one more question related to light industrial uses within the current Bayshard.
so right now we're zoned both M1 and M2. So we have again roughly 50 acres. 37 of it is light industrial. 13 of it is heavy industrial. We have, I'm sure you're familiar with Hammerhead Metals, which would be a heavy industrial user. We have a couple of other businesses that are waste management, tire facilities, and that sort of thing. I mean, we do house some of the uglier businesses of Maui, to be honest, and I think the good thing is that it's really away from any community.
And just one more question. I remember the last time you were here, you said you were getting a lot of phone calls for businesses to lease space out there.
Yes, I would. We've gone through a bit of an evolution. We have a lot of small. I don't know if you got the written testimony that I sent in yesterday, but we have lots as small as 1,200 to 1,500 square feet for real small businesses to start. So we really have about 170 tenants out there. We've lost a lot of our bigger tenants as they've grown to move to buy in other industrial parks, but we've been able to fill that in with smaller tenants. And honestly, we're kind of an incubator for a lot of small businesses on the island and the construction trades.
I guess the question I was getting to is there high demand for light industrial? And
Well, there's yes. I mean, again, we zone light industrial. A good portion of our business are contractors and subcontractors, base yards, landscapers. I have some auto body guys and that sort of thing as well. So there seems to be good demand. Where we really meet our demand is the fact that we have an accordion ability, so we can meet. If you're a guy starting a landscape company and looking for 2,000 square feet, that's pretty tough to find on this island. If you're not going to somebody's neighborhood and doing something that you're not supposed to. So,
Vernon?
Hey, Mr. Stoner. So I like that you're out there, and you can serve both, South Maui and Central Maui. Of course, the gouge stands out
yes,
for me. So if you was to develop the bottom part, the green part,
right.
This is probably what we're going to recommend, where you create a water, like a catchment inside or a buffer from the gouge.
Right, not to drain into the absolutely.
Yeah, not to drain, because I know the old section you have the concrete, the old HCNS ditch.
Yeah.
So
the ditch goes across Pulejo, yeah.
Yeah. So with all the the rain when it rains hard over there. And in Industrial Park, you know, a lot of that runoff ends up in that ditch, right?
The vast no the in the drainage in the Hawaii that goes through there.
The concrete one.
No, we cannot drain into that.
No,
we-
but the surface runoff.
No, it slopes the other way. It actually goes. We have catchment basins all through the base yard, so it does not flow into the OI. We are prohibited to have by our lease with A and B at the time with HCNS. We cannot have it flow in there. So the road actually flows the other way and drains actually across under the OI, and then we have two drainage basins over there. So
Okay, and what about towards the north end of the gulch?
yeah, the majority of our drainage stays on site. There are parts that at the entry to Central Maui Base Yard that predate us, and I can't say how that slopes. But anything that we were to do from here on would drain on site.
And who monitor that?
Who monitors it?
You know, make sure.
Well, various departments when we go in for various permitting monitor it. And again, with regards to the gulch, we report to the Land Use Commission every year about protecting and making sure that there's no disruption to the gulch in whatever way. We did have a major fire that came through there that destroyed quite a bit, but that was not our doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Still no motion. What do we want to do with this area? Everett?
I move that we approve the general plan version with the buffers suggested in our policies.
Is there a second? Second by Vernon. Discussion? Any objections? Okay, so we've adopted the general plan, Maui Island plan outline for the Central Maui Base Yard as industrial. And the next one is the DHHL land west of the highway, which goes from project district to agricultural. So could we get my slide up there, because it shows the before and after. It's kind of important. So we had the presentation by DHL, and they said that they had come to the conclusion this was not a good area to develop. So they're canning their plans for that. So, and as I understand it, they would have no objection to going from project district to agricultural. You see, it's the tall oval on the left there, goes from purple on the left to green on the right.
Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, if I recall our discussion, they were talking about maybe doing some egg lots there, maybe 100. Is that your recollection for the egg land?
I watched the meeting today. Yes, that is what they said.
So 100 ag lots, and I don't know what size, maybe 10 acres for the. That's a pretty big area, isn't it? What's that total area?
Terrence, I think it was like 700 acres. The ag lots. You remember Covika? Yeah. Oh, it's not that much? Okay.
I don't remember.
It's 185. Everett?
I know this is an important project for the department, both for the beneficiaries who desire to be farmers, and also for the income that the other property would generate for the department, for the trust.
So could someone make a motion?
I move we approve the plan on the right.
Agricultural?
I don't think it really matters, to be honest. I mean, by federal law, they can do what they want to do.
Okay.
So
I think it's good to be consistent in our community plan with with their intentions if they're appropriate. Second by Mike. There are several seconds, but I'm giving it to Mike. Discussion? Any objections? Okay, so it's agricultural. And then we have the Maui Raceway Park, which goes from project district to public, quasi-public. So that's the one, a little bit down there. It's purple on the left and it's blue on the right. So I know we don't want to keep project districts unless it's absolutely necessary, but could someone explain the proposal?
The public quasi-public is based on the current use as Maui Raceway Park because it is a public quasi-public raceway park.
So it's public quasi-public because it is public quasi-public? Okay, makes sense.
I move that we approve it as public quasi-public.
Okay, second by Jennifer. Any discussion? Daniel?
I know the Raceway Park is very popular. I haven't been there myself, but it's used quite a bit. You know, you drive up the highway, you see the lights on. So definitely a lot of people recreate over there. And if you like cars and want to race them, that's where you go. So it is heavily used.
For the discussion?
Yeah,
Vernon?
there's everything in racing over there: mud, dirt, the one you crash the cars with, that demolition derby,
Motocross.
motocross. But this is the mecca right here for the whole state, because other islands don't have that luxury. So it attracts attention even nationally. They have dragsters show up, so it's a good setup, good location. This would have been a extension idea if, our permanent fairgrounds could have been out there. We lost our old fairground, yeah.
Okay, any objections to public, quasi-public for that? Okay, fine, we've adopted that. The next one is the DNR land north of the Maui Raceway Park. I guess Pulefunui, I guess, going from agricultural to employment center. So this is state land, but I think it's good if we're consistent with the state use for it. And that's the it's yellow on the left and then pink on the right. Just north of the Raceway Park. It's the new industrial area that's kind of in the works right now, or light industrial.
Yeah, so this is different from DHHL. There was some confusion.
Yes.
DHHL, and then there's Department of Land and Natural Resources, correct?
Yeah.
And this is a potential area for industrial use, light industrial,
Yes.
because employment center is light industrial, yeah?
Includes light industrial, but it's also could be it could also be retail, other types of things. I think Robert Stoner told us that that would be one of the differences between the base yard and this place. Is that this place would have more of a commercial orientation, than, most likely, than the base yard. Everett.
Does anyone know if this is where the potential site for the relocated Maui Corrections Center would be?
No idea.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, yes, it is. We could build a giant correctional facility for the whole state. That's a permitted use.
And this is all DLNR property.
I mean, so similar with what we were saying before about the HHL. I think that it would be what the DLNR wants it to be, but I think it's good if we're consistent.
I think they actually need our approval. I
They do.
think, yeah, unlike Department of Hawaiian Homelands that has, they have a trump card granted to them by the federal government, the state actually needs our approval.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I think that's good leverage. What do you think? All right, we can leverage something. Right?
Do we have a motion? Mike?
Yeah, make the motion.
Motion to approve as employment center.
Yes.
Is there a second? Second by Brian. Discussion? Mike?
Yeah, I'll just offer that the DLNR did a public presentation. I'll say several years ago. I forget how long ago, and explaining what they wanted to do there. And some of us asked the question, why? Why has this got to do with what DLNR's mission is? And they said it's simply a way to generate funding because I feel, and many feel, that they're severely underfunded. And when you see what their mission is, their enforcement officers are charged to enforce all regulations from the top of the mountain till, I don't know, a couple miles out to sea, and they have a handful of guys to do it. So they're almost like stepchildren of the state agencies, that they're so severely underfunded. And those of us who are concerned about the environment, it seems like they should get way more funding, but every year they don't seem to get it. So that was one reason that we said, yes, if you're going to get money to help preserve the natural environment, why not do it out there if you can create something that will generate funding? Thank you.
Let's see, we had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any objections to industrial for that? I'm sorry, to employment center. Okay, fine, we've adopted that employment center. So one more here, and that's the one to the east of the raceway, which is proposed as industrial, and before it was ag. Before it was ag, and now it's industrial, and that's already under development. You can kind of see from the map, maybe. Okay, it's the purple on the right one, and then on the left it's yellow. So it's the purple on the right, just the right of the blue.
That has M2 zoning, so it has zoning to be industrial.
And it already, I mean, if you look at the satellite picture, it is largely industrial already at this point. Do you have a motion on that one?
I move, we approve it. It's already zoned.
Second by Jennifer. Discussion. I find we have adopted that. So one more thing before we take a break, and that's all the surrounding area, which is green, I guess yellow on the left and green on the right, which is actually, it's actually a combination of agriculture and open space. But it's basically unchanged from the 1998 plan in the proposal. So I'll just make a blanket request. Is there a motion to leave it as proposed? The sea of green surrounding these purple areas.
Just a quick question. Who owns the land? State land? Maui Pono land?
Correct.
On both.
This down at the bottom underneath the Maui Raceway Parkway is state land. There is Hawaiian Cement owns a big part of the green. Some of it's Mahi Pono land. And then down below, there is DHHL land. That's way down here. And those are their recommended.
Hey, Karen, you can blow that section up.
Yeah, but by far the bulk of it is Mahipono. By far.
That's not Monsanto. That colored area.
This area is the DHHL map that's just overlaid on the area.
This DHHL property? Okay.
So Karen, what they do? They color code it in acres.
That was from their presentation of what they wanted in different areas. So that was this area right here is DHHL. And we had just put their map overlaid on it. But this is how it is currently in the plan.
So it's all the green that we're seeing right now, right? Is that where the land use we're looking at, all the green on the screen?
All
Well-
this green right here is a mixture of state, Mahipono, and some random other owners. Right here, this little piece right here
DHHL.
is DHHL. And this little lens, like shaped like an eyeglass property
Yellow.
right there, is also DHHL.
Oh, okay.
This is the one where they wanted a more mixed uses on.
Yeah, I would say actually more of it is open space than agricultural. And my guess is that's really for tax reasons, because if they're not actually using it for agriculture, they can get a lower tax rate as open space.
Right.
So can I have a motion to accept the continuation of the open space agricultural designations for the remaining areas of this sub area north of North Kihei? Right?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Tova. Discussion?
So Karen, just that piece we're voting on, or wherever you move the cursor, that's the area too, like all that.
I think Rob is saying that all of this is agriculture, including DHHL. So all of it would be designated agriculture and open space as it is currently on the map. And state conservation is this area? Was that?
For discussion? Any objections? Okay, we have adopted the proposed designations of open space and agriculture for the remaining areas north of North Kihei. With that, 10-minute break, back at 7:12. The testimony we got from them, they're asking either to make it, I think, commercial or to for the county to buy it. Of course, we can't make that decision. But anyway, so let's talk about the Weinberg property, which is currently project space, and then would go to open space in the proposal. Could we get that on the screen so we can see them side by side or above each other?
Please talk to me a little nicer.
Pardon me?
Please speak to me a little nicer. That would be appreciated.
So it's the purple project district up at the upper left, and then below that it's shows as green open space.
I move for open space. I think it'd be a great, I think it could be used as a retention basin.
Second by second all over the place by Vernon. Discussion. Kyoki.
Karen, I appreciate everything you do week in and week out. Thank you for your services. This property is, well, properties, they're kind of interesting because there's a smaller one, right? Towards the intersection, and then the larger one up and around behind the old Sudas and stuff, yeah. I believe, are parts of it in the Slarexa too, yeah? Okay. But there's suggestion about possible, county purchase in the future, just possible. I know we discussed this in earlier meetings. We can't buy all the land, but I think parts of this could be good candidate for that. But also because I second Everett's motion, I agree for open space. This area is a good candidate for that, especially near the flood-prone area. Because as we know, that is a really, they can't figure out what to do. I mean, that's where all the mud comes out and just completely like swallows that area up. But yeah, I would kind of support the county, if not all, in part. This would be a good candidate. Parks, whatnot. Thank you.
Daniel.
If we wanted to have an outlet from Kie to north, this is the area that could be used potentially for the continuation of Kenoleo. See how Kenoleo there? It ends at Uapo. So you turn left, then you go down to South Kie Road, and then you turn right, and you go up to Piilani Highway. So if we talked about this before, but if you continued Uapu towards the North Kie Road, that would give you an outlet to get out of Kie and not have to use Piilani Highway per se, but then you could hook up with North Kie Road and then continue on Mokulele, aka Veterans Highway. So that's a potential use for this property, a transportation artery, much needed.
Yeah, we did bring that up at the KC meeting yesterday, and Nolly said, he didn't say it explicitly, but he kind of indicated that's one of the things they're considering. An escape route. Tova?
Just a footnote, because I know this is a little off topic from what we're talking about, but it floods past Kenoleo when the wave energy is high. So thinking that corner is a way to get out is currently not safe, and in the future certainly won't be. But I am supportive of the notion of open space designation.
More discussion?
Yeah, I've seen it flooded up to, I don't know, up all the way up to that intersection. Actual, maybe Vernon would know better. He lives down there, but I've seen it flood below South Kie Road, but not up to Kenoleo. I've never seen it that high.
Yeah, so the South Key Road is all wave action into Kenoleo Park, the youth center, but the inland flooding, when it floods on that Weinberg property, the amount of silt that had built up there is 5-6 feet, the entire property. So the little stream that goes to the Waikor Bridge on South Key Road, it's very thin, skinny. It's not servicing the load that's coming from the Piilani Bridge. So when it enters into the green space, it's already 5, 6 feet above the little ravine. So all that flooding goes north south anyway before it reaches the beaver dam on South Key Road. And it's gonna stay there. They're not gonna do anything. So the idea is to make an extension behind ABC store, because turning right at Oapu to go on traffic on South Key Road and right on Pilani and left to, we're just backing it up over there. Anyway.
Everett?
I'd like to hear Wayne's opinion on this property. You're right there. What do you think?
There's going to be a major lawsuit happening to probably the county because the drainage bases were not designed properly. Every time it rains, it all floods and backs up. You could almost call it a wetland because the flooding is tremendous. Well, I serve. Couple of condos are planning to sue the county in regards to the bad planning on the drainage basins that flooded.
So I haven't heard any objections. Can we move to a decision on this? Any objections to open space for the Weinberg property? Okay, fine, we have adopted that. The next one is the North Ohukai, which is a weird rectangle kind of squished in there in the middle of the residential area, which goes from rural to residential. But it's already developed. It's not like we're talking about what we want to do with it. It's just what we're going to call it. Yeah, it's the one which is kind of light blue or light teal or something right there. Yeah, that rectangle. So it was rural before, and now it's residential. Everett?
It's already developed residential.
Yeah.
I move that we make it residential.
Second by Brian. Discussion?
Is that where Halikaiola is? No,
No, that's on the other side of the highway.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let's see the map again. Oh, it's up on, it's Mauka.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's fully developed. I think the reason why it was rural before is that it has larger lots than the other parts of Ohukai. But at this point, it's just residential.
maybe that's why there's no sidewalks, right?
I don't think they'll get more sidewalks just because they call it residential, but they should.
That's rural.
Okay, any objections?
It is also zoned rural, just if that affects.
Still zoned rural, no.
That's the old Kie hikes. Yeah, that's old Kie hikes, right? Yeah, Maui Oi. Yeah.
So any objections? Okay, residential for that one. Then we have the Ohukai shops, which go from light industrial to transit-oriented corridor in this proposal. So I think that's worth a little bit more discussion. So that's the red on that map. And just to recall the discussions we had last time, I think that the idea of calling it transit-oriented corridor rather than employment center would be because envisioning a potential redevelopment there within the 20-year life cycle of this plan. But since it's already developed, I think really the only options are transit-oriented corridor or employment center.
Chair, is there one primary landowner or is there multiple landlords? Multiple, okay. The employment center would not have housing, right?
The employment center has housing that is only related to the
Of live work,
employment. Yeah.
live workspaces. Mm. Can we just read out loud the appropriate uses for each trend and then, think what it would.
Yeah, so transit-oriented corridor has higher density commercial uses that serve local or regional markets, light industrial uses such as warehousing, light assembly, service, and craft-type operations, medium to high density residential uses. That's a big difference. It's a huge difference, actually. Public, quasi-public uses such as parks, schools, and churches, whereas employment center has light industrial uses, which is the same, business incubators. I don't think there's a reason why they couldn't be in a transit-oriented corridor as well. Live workspaces, retail and commercial uses that serve the needs of workers in the employment center, and parks and civic spaces. So the main difference really is the potential of transit-oriented corridor to have medium to high density residential uses.
It seems like the current use of the property is more in line with employment center. I move for employment center.
Second by Brian. Discussion?
So I don't know if still get churches and school up there. So would employment center have that in churches and school? Because they kind of been running up there for a long time. So what would that happen? What happened if we change that? I don't know.
That's true, but I think civic spaces includes that. Isn't that right? Yeah.
Okay.
Wayne?
Mr. Chairman, is this, Rory, you're here? Is this part of the 485 acres that are asking for urban
Nope.
development?
Nope. This is the existing Ohukai commercial center. Yeah.
Who is the major landowner?
I don't think there is one. This is where Tesoro is, and that corner, and just a bunch. Val Piroff developed a bunch of tilt-up warehouses back there.
That's the one get the pork and peas, the Filipino store, and Miyaki. Yeah, that's the one.
Vernon, there's schools that meet up there still, and churches have meetings.
The
up there.
church center's still there. I don't know if they in and out the Kia charter when moved. Yeah, so it just came to mind that, if those entities need service or place, I just kind of, where else would they go, I guess.
It looks like there's well over 100 owners. Maybe 200. Wayne?
Question on to planning. Does this mean that we're kind of giving a carte blanche for residential, business, whatever they want to build? What is permitted there?
For transit-oriented development, it would be do a combination of live work unit, or you can do where there's businesses on the bottom and residential on the top, but it's higher density. It's a higher density uses, or if it's economic center, then it would just be live work units. So having like an apartment in your business, kind of. Those were the two you were discussing. And I believe economic center was the motion, right?
That's right.
So, was it employment center? Is that what? Okay. So, if it's civic spaces, aren't civic spaces like for government? Not necessarily schools or churches?
You can include that too.
Huh?
They're included too.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
They're included as well in civic spaces.
Civic spaces would include schools and churches?
Yes.
Is that correct, planning? Planning is saying yes. Just want to check, just in case, Someone wants you lease a space up there. Are we sure?
Technically, by the definition, it is relating to the administration of a municipality. So that would be government spaces. So maybe put public. You are correct, Daniel.
Okay, it's not churches, government spaces. And schools may or may not fall under them. All right. So I remember when the charter school met up there for many, many years. Well, if there's another school that wants to use those spaces, then they wouldn't be able to use it under the definition we're using for employment centers. I think Vernon has brought up a good point for churches and schools, something we should consider.
Go ahead, Tova.
It sort of sounds like we're saying transit-oriented corridor might be a better descriptor then, because it includes many of the same things from commercial center, but also has that quasi-public use space. Would there be any amenability to looking at that as a more appropriate designation?
Sure.
Brian?
So my only concern of going with the transit-oriented corridor is that we'd be opening it up for higher density housing. And is that what we really want in that area? My opinion would be no, personally, but that's obviously just my personal opinion. But that would be why I would lean more towards the employment center. I can get the names right here. Versus the transit-oriented.
Go ahead.
I agree with you. I think there are better, I think there are proposals for better residential properties than this. This is really a lot of small businesses, a lot of incubators, just A couple of gyms are back there. It's a commercial warehouse area right now.
Vernon?
I kind of like them with the way they now. Because if we go, what's the other one, Brian? Employment Center? Wait, which one? The one that you can build houses? Transit. So that would that mean like we break down the Maui outlet store and then we build houses? That can happen? Man, I don't. I think no.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for neighborhood center for that area. Any further discussion? I'm sorry, employment center. Employment center. Any objections? Okay, employment center for that one. Next one is, I think you have an announcement to make.
I just wanted to let everybody know that I approached the Board of Ethics and just disclosing what I asked them. So where we run our business, our recycling business is on land, and our landlord is Haleakala Ranch. So I went to the board and asked them for an opinion, and they advised that I cannot vote on anything to do with or related to the ranch, any of the ranch business. So I will be recusing myself of the next section.
Okay, and she asked to do this before we got into Haleakala Ranch land, which is the next one here, which is this is the large pink area on the right there, Mauka of Pilani Promenade and Mauka of the Ohukai Center, and that would go. Actually, no, it's broken down. There's several different parts here. So the top part, the top pink part, goes from single family, which is in the 1998 plan, to proposed small town center. But on the other hand, it's proposed currently that this whole a huge area there would go from, I mean, that whole, all that pink would go from currently open space, and then the top part small multifamily, single family, to a small town center. And I did have another proposal. Let's see.
The pink space I see is light industrial.
I'm sorry. On my map, it's pink. It's kind of more yellowish on that one, I guess. But there we are. That pink one. Yeah, on the right, far right.
Okay, can we put a
What was it you're looking for?
what we're talking about?
Okay,
I'm looking at this map on which property we're talking about. I see the cursor moving around, yeah.
It's all the light pink there on the right.
Well, there's a lot of light pink.
Yes. And the proposal is to turn all of it into a small town center.
So I see, isn't the border Kulani Hakoi Gulch? So anything north of Kulani Hakoi Gulch? Right? Isn't that the sub area we're talking about, sub area 2?
But it extends below that. Actually, it extends below the sub area, as Rory pointed out last time. It goes all the way down.
So that's a different sub area?
Yes, it crosses the sub area
So we're
boundary.
in sub area 2, right?
Yes.
We're not talking about all of it, right, at this meeting?
Okay, so this is what's proposed by the planning department. I have an alternative proposal, which I hope you guys have seen, which is based on the ranch's conceptual diagram, which has it broken down into mostly residential, a little bit of neighborhood center, and and one um, employment center. That's the purple. So this would, rather than have it be all small town center, would have 0 small town center. And just to explain that, so we have a small town center, kind of. We have Azika, Lipoa, the Kihei Business District there. We do not need, and we can't support another small town center. It's just not possible. I mean, it's hard enough already for the businesses in our existing small town center. And we don't want to be attracting people from all over South Maui to go to this new area there. We want to serve the new residents, the local residents. So I think small town center is inappropriate anywhere in that area. Not to mention all of it. Wayne?
Questions for planning. Karen, I was reading testimony from Maui tomorrow, dated May 16. Going on to the second page. The same plan discusses the importance of aquifer recharge, reduction of sediment load, protecting riparian corridors, among other things. Per the plan in Kie quote, the Kulani, Hakoi, Waipuilani, and Keokea cultures are prone to surface water flooding. Both infrastructure, such as roads and bridges, and private property are damaged during the storm events by sediment-laden stormwater. Is this true? Or is it a lie?
Yes, this plan does discuss that. I don't know how to answer that question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it goes on to say, Salt Maui CPAC holds in its hands the ability to take a major step towards resolving these issues through proper designations and policies in the new draft plan, particularly with the Haleakala Ranch property and a portion of the Ka'ono Ranch property, which are sandwiched between and Tulani and Waipuilani gulches. The area between the gulches represents a prime location for public acquisition in order to construct a major flood control and aquifer recharge program. So they go on to say that Maui tomorrow would recommend that the area between the two gulches remain designated as agriculture, and that efforts should be undertaken with the county state to acquire adequate property, so on. Your comments? Planning Department?
I'm going to defer to Garrett.
There's a number of ways that we can address the sediment and storm drainage, and what had been proposed, to keep it as something less intense, like ag for the county to purchase. That would be an approach. But a lot, as this group knows, a lot of that storm drainage is occurring farther up Malka. So even if we try to identify it here, there's a much larger project that needs to be addressed, that I know people are trying to solve for right here. Getting almost like looking at a whole recharge area program in place, a watershed program. Again, designating any of these areas along the gulches to be something less intense could go towards, some type of storm mitigation program. Um, I guess in terms of how we look at how that's done, and this would be a good situation, just looking at this proposal right here, even though we would designate it as maybe something other than open space or something other than ag, when the developer comes in with those proposals, they're going to have to design into their project how they're going to be either, having a setback from the gulch or stormwater detention. So personally, I would almost caution against just a broad brush, don't designate, because there's probably some property that is more developable versus just a gulch. So I'm not going to say that the opinion that was put forth is correct or incorrect. That is one approach to do it, is to keep it low designated and hope somebody picks it up and does a big storm project. But ultimately, that developer will have to build it into his or her project to deal with it as well too. And usually it's on their dime.
Garrett, all I want to say, due to global warming, I see what the effects of bad planning is. And I'm not that stupid to see what is coming to Maui. And we've been through flooding already. We're looking at Malka roads. If a major flood occurs because of the government process and give them the green light, are we in essence putting ourselves out to, should a storm occur, people die? People die? Aren't we putting ourselves out to liability?
I think the stormwater impacts that we have now, and we've experienced recently, we're seeing it today, and we're only going to see it get worse. Yeah, the flooding is going to continue. We're going to have stormwater coming up higher, so that South Kihei Road, again, is going to get probably more wet soil over time. It's going to be less developable. I think that the public at large, has to solve for this from both the government side and the private side. I don't think it's achievable by one party working without the other. So I think as we look forward to, as we designate these areas, there are some areas we probably want to designate either as open space or at least have the policies to address that stormwater consideration. But it's going to go up beyond this planning area. We probably, as we've discussed, there probably needs to be some large, whether it be stormwater parks or some type of infrastructure, green infrastructure that runs upstream, so we don't start seeing as much downstream. It's going to be a combination of both.
Derek, I want to refresh your memory. We already seen a firefighter die 2 months ago. Is that a lesson that we gotta learn from the county being negligent in the safety of our residents? You're talking about a firefighter that I got 2 sons that are firefighters. This is no joke. This happened on Maui. So I'm looking for you to give us the guidance. Is this makeup of so-called community residents living in South Maui?
And I totally, empathize with that family. It was tragic. I mean, any loss of life is tragic, and we try to learn from it as best we can. So yeah, I think it's appropriate for the CPAC members to look at where there are potential hazards, whether that be gulch or otherwise, and try to incorporate into this plan, either designate it properly or putting policies forth that we can build into some infrastructure improvements, and not just from the liability standpoint, but again, just from the health and safety and then saving a life standpoint.
I just second Daniel. I just wanted to ask, so we actually have a member of the founding member of the Marama Haleakala organization among our CPAC members. So the question is, I mean, you guys are working on exactly this issue of drainage management of Mauka. So how would that be affected by the proposal here? Can it still be done if there's a development like this?
These are huge watersheds, and so it's always going to be a treatment train approach. You're never going to manage that amount of water in a limited area. The first project is being scoped and put out for funding is kind of doesn't show up very well there, but it's just outside the boundary here. So that's a first step of many that will be needed. Work will be needed within this area. Work will be needed above this area, because you can't deal with a whole mountain load of water and mud in one area. And end of pipe solutions are rarely what you want to look to as the way to solve it. It's got to work all the way up Malcolm.
I have Everett, then Daniel, and then Kyoki.
Can we hear from Roy to as to the drainage, retention, and also the upper roadway? As
Can you answer that, Rory?
Thank you, Everett, and thanks again to all you guys here. I admire all your passion and everything that you're putting into this plan. In terms of the drainage improvements, the regional drainage improvements that Tova was alluding to, the ranches are totally committed to working towards solutions towards the regional drainage problems. So far, the ranches have been looking at areas above the urban growth boundary for these big regional, either detention basins or was it detention parks or infiltration parks? Or I mean, that was a really cool concept. They've made a lot of progress recently. The head of the NRCS in the Western region, I believe, was here on a site visit. The county of Maui is going to be requesting that they do a feasibility study for the Kalani Hokoi Gulch. And then the NRCS is going to prepare an analysis. Look towards a big improvement on Kalani Hokoi. This is going to be like a step one of many. The Malama Haleakala is a potential conduit for funding. They've met with Congresswoman Jill Takuda, and she's looking to put money in the farm bill for a project like this. It's going to be a significant amount of money. But my main point is in addressing Wayne's question about whether these big detention basins should be below the urban growth boundary or above, the ranches would prefer and are working towards siting those structures above the urban growth boundary within the areas that were colored yellow or pink in this version, and they were considered all one color. It was following the precedent from West Maui. That's what West Maui had done with some of their larger projects. And I believe the chair is going to suggest an alternative layout that the ranches are supportive of, and we can discuss that later. But the areas that are within the urban growth boundary, those are going to have to address runoff from the property and do significant mitigation measures. It's called low impact design is one way to call it. So you really mitigate the quantity of water coming off your property and the quality of water coming off your property. So you can't exacerbate anything downstream. So if this area is developed, the developed area won't exacerbate those existing problems. And then through the other regional efforts with the multi-stakeholders, the ranches are committed to working with those stakeholders, NRCS and other landowners, to address the regional stormwater issues.
or is there a target? I mean, is there a goal of how much, as a percentage of the existing runoff that these upper drainage improvements would capture?
I haven't seen any kind of numerics, although tackling Kalani Hokoi first is going to be it's going to be a big task because that is the biggest one in all of South Maui. And we're talking significant flows. So I don't know if it's going to be done in one effort or in multiple efforts, like Toba suggested. That's going to be fleshed out through this feasibility analysis that NRCS is doing.
What is an RCS?
I'm sorry, NRCS, National Resource Conservation Service. Yeah. Formerly the Soil Conservation Service, I believe it was. All under the Department of Agriculture. Same program, by the way, that implemented the various sediment basins on West Maui. I don't know if you guys remember with Buddy Nobriga guys and West Maui Land and Pine. They did a series of retention basins on the various gulches, I think about 6 of them, starting from Kahoma all the way up past Napili. And they implemented those with the help of the landowners and with NRCS. And we're using that as kind of a model to try to get the implementation of these drainage basins down here in South Maui.
Daniel?
This is where we get back to what Vernon said earlier, why South Maui Community Plan District is different than West Maui because of Mauka Makai. And that's a huge challenge because we can't say how we would like things to happen Mauka of us. We're Makai. So that's a big issue. And drainage is a big issue here. This area is above an area that has chronic flooding and gotten much worse over time, and it will get much, much worse. I don't think we've even seen the worst of what can happen. And I think there's a potential to put people's not only properties, but lives at risk, as we've already lost one firefighter, and we may lose people who actually live in these homes due to major flooding events. I think it's important, as many testifiers have said, and I've listened to, that we need to have the infrastructure in first, not even concurrent, at least with this area, because of its potential for harm downstream. The infrastructure has to go in first. The stormwater infrastructure and the roadways, if you want to use this as another north-south collector road, Mauka. That has to go in first before anything is built. What I don't support what's coming out of the planning department. And I don't think they can argue or justify what they're proposing. I think what Rob is suggesting is a much better plan. However, having said that, I think we should leave this in ag and open space until those infrastructure issues are addressed. As Malama Haleakala is working on that, I think it has to be addressed first before we designate this land for other uses. So I'm going to make a motion that we designate this area open space and ag.
So just to clarify, you mean, all the area that was pink? Yep. Wayne?
Question for Daniel. Are we talking about the 400 acres that the planning department on April the 18th, 2023 is proposing?
I'm talking about what is coming out of the planning department, all the pink areas, open space, and all those pink areas. in sub area, I'm assuming we're talking about just sub area 2. That's what I'm addressing, sub area 2, North Key A. Yeah, open space and ag.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So I concur with Uncle Wayne's and Daniel's comments. Thank you, Roy, for sharing some of what you guys are thinking about for drainage. But I have to say, when I look at this, I mean, I know this is like a, into the future sketch, but it's kind of scary, the potential that I feel like all these hardened surfaces have on contributing to an already out of control problem of storm or lack of storm mitigation. When I look at it just roughly, I also agree there's like far not enough open space. And when we talk about infrastructure, I think we need to learn, it's important to learn from how the planning of the past has affected the now, right, at this moment. I look at it and I see the potential for a lot of mess. We need to fix first what we need to fix before we can move on to anything, in my opinion. That's my opinion on this. Felt the need to speak out about it. Thank you.
Cody?
Is there a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Yours? Huh? Okay, good.
So Rob, this your plan or your like get roundabouts and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's yours. Oh, two different colors. Oh, yeah, colorful. Yeah, this is your plan or proposed.
Yes.
So, so this one tough one. So Kotova, where's your project above this of that? Okay. So with that soil conservation people, been meeting with them for quite some time. Met them on Molokai. Same thing. Uh, Same situation as South Maui. So just think about this. To regenerate the soil, whatever Tova and whoever else going to be involved with this, it's going to take years to the 2 inches of whatever grass or weeds grow. But the soil is so powdered, it's going to take years to get it back where the water, R1 water, whatever they use for keeping the ground and to get the grass back, anything back, it would take years. And that's some big area. So just thinking. Yeah, so let's say we look at Rob's plan, yeah. And then if if certain housing was done, not so too much housing, but then on the land there's good vegetation, what is Bermuda grass but not so much hardened ground. And the reason why I bringing this up is, you're gonna have people up there, you're gonna have people take care of their land. That's the plan. Less hardened area, do it as eco-friendly as possible, and that would create more space to be maintained by people that can live up there. But there's vegetation and people are managing that parcel of the land. Now, when you look above this project, if this project is accepted or the land use, but when you look Mauka, it's even bigger area to, how we're going to figure this out, because the county trying to figure out too with the mitigation with the deer, the fencing, watershed efforts and slaughterhouses that would be situated uh, up country. So that's just me thinking. Same with the wetlands, the Welakahau village. There's an idea of a KOK eco village there. Now, if we put houseless people over there, and away from where it's wet, at least going to have people there that going to have to take care of that area too, because we cannot take care of everything. Our Hui cannot manage everything, so it's getting the community to buy into that effort. Might not get passed, but might be a good idea to happen. So I just thinking, if you had people up Mauka, you get your yard, you get your trees, and that's one section that can stay green with people on top. Just thinking. And then I'm okay like even ag designation, but who gonna take care of that? Yeah. Who gonna take care of all that up Mauka?
Everett?
I'm going to vote against the motion. I think for the improvements that the community needs for the roadway as a alternative way out of South Maui, for the drainage collection, the retention basins to lessen the flooding further Makai of this property, for the housing next to the high school, and the housing that we need. We've heard a lot of, even tonight we heard testimony about the need for housing. So I'm voting against the motion. I think this is a part of the solution to many of the problems that we have on South Maui.
Just one little clarification. The blue there is public, quasi-public, intended for a school, but that is actually not in my proposal because we realized that a residential allows for that. So you could build a school even if it's yellow, even if it's residential. Daniel?
So this was an alternate plan to what's being proposed by the county, right? This map here. And the other one is what the county or the planning department is proposing. I'm saying the county's proposal, that's the one I'm talking to. The two options right now, I'm talking that I would like to see pink areas remain ag or open space. And just to reiterate, I think building there is going to exacerbate the problem because you don't have the infrastructure there to drain it. It's going to, I think whatever communities you build up may help a little bit, but what's going to help the most is getting the drainage infrastructure in there first. And it's private property. It's ranch land. Ulupalakua Ranch, not Ulupalakua, Haleakala, Ulu. And they've already organized with Malama, Haleakala. They're working on it now. So let them do the groundwork. And if it takes a little bit of time for them to put what needs to be put in place before that area is developed, they should do that first. And yes, people say we need housing, but there are people in houses already downstream from what potentially can cause harm to them. So I'm thinking about those people that are already in homes. And we've already had multiple people testify about the need for infrastructure. Yes, housing and infrastructure, but I think infrastructure is more important in this particular case. More important than housing.
Gyoki and Antova.
So I agree with Daniel. While it has the potential for good affordable housing areas, I think right now I just feel it has the potential to go sideways too quickly because of the lack of infrastructure. I can't stress enough, we need to fix what is wrong right now. And you're asking us to designate a large portion of land, which makes it difficult for myself because I see actually smaller portions of that. If we had that option, it might be a little bit different, slightly different conversation, but you're asking for us to designate a very large portion as a land use designation. So if that's the case, then correct, it needs to be, for now, open space or
You do have the option to choose the area you would like designated.
I guess I'm hoping for you need it too. So for me, that is, we answer the call that we've heard loud and clear that we need visionary long-term planning so that things line up where they need to and they're positioned where they need to. So something like this that takes out, before it was all zoned Azeka Plaza. Now it's zoned more appropriately for village and residential. But do you remember the testimony from Randy Wagner last week? Was that last week? She had a bunch of conditions in there as recommendations for policy where perhaps you get a land use designation that allows some forward thinking, but you include in the policy nothing starts in terms of building anything there other than the backlog of infrastructure. She included the cultural preservation piece. She included the stormwater management issue, which we all know is huge. So, I guess that's what I'm holding out for, is a hope that we can craft a careful enough plan that we don't lose the opportunity for visionary planning, but we also don't lose what we prioritize, which is catching up on everything that is behind that needs to serve the community's infrastructure.
Right, Brian.
Tova, thank you for saying that, because that's actually what I was just going to mention. Is I don't want us to miss an opportunity to plan what could be there, but I think we could go back to our policies when we're going back to them, ensuring that our policies are stating that the infrastructure has to be in place, and that we can even call it out and say these specific parcels cannot be developed until A, B, and C is done, and that way we at least understand what's going in there, and we have a plan. Because as we're building out rest of the South Maui, I think it would be important for us to understand what residential area is going to be there, because we might not put it someplace else, or we might choose to keep open space in a different area because we think housing is going to go there eventually. So I don't think we can look at everything so segmented. I think we need to take a step back and understand what is the kind of vision, because we could also look and say, great, we want to do residential here, but then all of a sudden in subsection 3, we say, oh, there's more. And in subsection 4, we might realize that that's way too much. So I think we need to look at it in sections, but take a step back also, look at the aggregate, but then go back to our policies and ensure we specifically outline in what order certain things have to happen, which I don't think we knew enough about in the beginning to do that accurately. So I support completely what you're saying. And Daniel, I do hear exactly what you're saying. I just don't want us to lose the opportunity to say, let's call this ag and open space, say we make an assumption that residential isn't going there, put residential in a whole bunch of other places, and then all of a sudden this becomes residential as well. And then we go, now we put way too much in because we didn't map it out fully. Just my thoughts.
Cody and then Kyoki.
I'd just like to add, as Uncle Wayne pointed out last week from the old Kiewa McKenna plan, people in planning need to be held accountable for not following through. This was in this plan. I hope it's in our new plan. I hope it's going to be implemented, taken into consideration when it comes to the infrastructure being in place before anything moves forward. Thank you.
Ua mai la ua. Aliko mai la liko. Alau mai la lau. Hamu'o mai la mu'o. These are the words in the Kulani Hako'i chant. Yeah. And what the chant talks about is about bringing life. Yeah. And it's really about allowing the Mo'olelo to live. We live in Hawaii, all right? Now, Kanaka have been dealing with these areas um, for many, many years. And it's very important that, you know, while some of us have only been living here for a limited amount of time, to understand that this river, Kulanihako'i, gives life. Yeah, we're looking at it as a problem, and it has created a lot of problems. But I think the important thing that we need to be realizing is that this river is very important to South Maui as well, and it gives life. Ha'ua mai la ua, aliko mai la liko, alau mai la lau, alala mai la lala, akumu mai la kumu. It talks about the root, the budding, the leaves that form, the blossoming, and then the tree. So after all is said and done, after all the water and all the flooding, the beautiful thing about us who's down on the ocean side that get to kilo all of this, we see all of the life that it brings, all the life that it spawns in the ocean, all the life that it spawns on the shoreline. That may not be important to some of you guys, but this is the Aina trying to return, try to keep going, trying to move forward. So we need to allow to make sure that in whatever we do, that Kulani Hakoi, that Mo'olelo continues to live. That's the most important thing. Because no matter what, I know we are islanders because we live on an island. So we got to remember that.
Can we start moving towards the decision here? Daniel?
This is a big decision. Okay, when this urban growth boundary came out of the GPAC, I don't know how many of you attended GPAC meetings and testified at GPAC meetings, but I did. The urban growth boundary for North Kihei was recommended by GPAC was much smaller. Then when it got to the county council, certain council members recommended a larger urban growth boundary, much, much larger than what came out of the GPAC. And this is what happened. Now, not everybody on the county council supported the larger urban growth boundary, but like here, there were enough votes to get it put in. I attended those meetings, and there were many residents who came out and testified against the larger growth boundary, saying that we didn't need it. Now, maybe Mike was at that meeting. I think Mike was at that meeting, and others of you were at the meeting. But there were many community members who didn't want to see such a large growth boundary. Now, here today, in the Community Plan Advisory Committee, you folks, some of you folks, are supporting designating land all the way to the very limits of the urban growth boundary. Why? Why are you designating so much of it? Well, you want to be able to master plan what goes up there. I think it's too much. Doesn't have to be this big. It should be smaller. You can have your cake and eat it too, but you don't have to designate everything so you're going to have a wedding cake when you need something you buy at Times or Safeway, something much smaller. This is a wedding cake. It's a huge cake. And I don't support designating all the land all the way up to the urban growth boundary. I think it's unnecessary. So that's why I feel that my motion for open space and ag is appropriate at this time. Maybe we can get into the weeds a little bit more, but I think for now, because we're not at that point, that let's help you support my motion, at least for now. Thank you.
Are you ready to go to a decision, Everett?
Just for clarification, I'm voting against the motion for ag and open space, but I'm supportive of the scaled down plan as recommended by Rob.
Toa?
I'm wondering if there's more middle ground potential here for open space designation for a band that would take us down from that boundary. Is that something that we as a committee would be interested in talking about? Because I mean, I think we all agree, nobody's thinking this is something that's getting built out in 10 years, which is what we're supposed to be writing the plan for, but realistically enduring for 20. And so is that worth a discussion?
Sure.
Okay, Kyoki, but I think we need to move on the motion that's on the table. We can do something else after that. Kyoki?
Well, just listening to everyone, and then Karen made a comment about my comment, right? About making a decision on such a large parcel right now. If you're gonna, I understand what you said, but right now it's not presented to us, right? We're having to make a decision on this whole piece. So, is there a potential to have planning show different? I mean, I don't know if what I'm requesting is even a possibility. I mean, I know that you're saying it is, but you know, this is a important moment. Okay, we're talking about a large portion of this whole sub area, right? So like I stressed before, it has the potential for disaster. You know, like Coco was saying, right? You know, in Hawaiian culture, water is a blessing. We shouldn't be squandering it. We're mismanaging it horribly. So that's why I feel strongly about, you know, some of the discussion being said. I mean, we can't. I spoke to Coco a few weeks ago, Noya, right? Right? Our future is in the past. We got to learn from these things. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. And I think there's differences of opinion on that. So those in favor, please raise your hand. The motion is to make it all agriculture and open space. And those against? And those abstaining? Okay, so motion passes. So this entire area, which is pink on there, will be ag and open space.
Kyoki, I didn't want to answer you because there was a motion on the floor, but you could select the areas that you think would be appropriate for development. And for some reason, my computer doesn't want to participate with me putting the map up there. But you could look at Rob's map and say, yeah, that part looks like a good candidate, or this little area down here does.
Okay, thank you. Like I mentioned before, it has the potential for, you know, solving some housing problems, but I was asked to make a decision on a very large parcel of land just now, and I did. So thank you.
So one option is there is the very large parcel at the top, which is single family in the Kia McKenna Community Plan. So that one is easily, you could separate that off if you wanted to. Yeah, the one she's circling there. So, I mean, there are lots of options, but that's one obvious one. Everett?
I was going to recommend the other end of the project, the south end, because it could connect to the high-tech park and it's adjacent to the high school. So at least we get part of that road built if it goes from the high-tech park through at least to through the village to the right.
Daniel?
Is Rory, do we designate Rory as a resource person? Can Rory speak to some of the, maybe what Everett said or what you proposed?
it's hard to recommend one or another without further further analysis. There's pros and cons to both sides of that areas of those areas. Again, we had proposed the whole area so that it could be master planned all. I think you guys heard that already, so that we could appropriately plan for infrastructure and build out of roadways and other facilities. Do it in one piece or another. Yeah, I would probably have to go back and think about it, or follow whatever you guys want to do.
Just from an infrastructure standpoint, if we took the bottom, basically everything Mackay of the North South Collector Road, the Malka North South Collector Road, but including the spine road going up to that roundabout. I think the cursor is right now. Yep, up to that point. So everything Mackay of the North South Collector Road and to the south of the spine road. Then we're getting a significant piece of infrastructure. It's connecting to the high-tech park. We're getting a good, fair amount of the North-South Collector Road. And we're also getting a fair amount of the road perpendicular to Pialina Highway that is supposed to be the road that goes up country.
Right.
Is that something that
It looks like roughly half in terms of area.
I think that's about a quarter, because you're saying just from the spine that goes the former upcountry highway road.
where the cursor is now
Yeah.
to the south, but Mackay of the North-South Collector Road.
Right. Right. So again, we could look at that. I would have to talk to my clients, the owners, to appropriate area. That would be about, I'm just eyeballing it, looks like about 25% of the area.
It's about half of your area. I mean, it looks like 25% if you include Pilani Promenade and the other things, but it's more like half of your area. More like 50%. Thank you. Daniel?
I'm sure committee members may have thoughts, other proposals, or even the landowners may have other thoughts of what can be done. And I don't know if we're ready to discuss those right now, but couldn't those proposals come at a future time? And we could come back. Might not, for this, for this area that we've just talked about.
We're going to run out of future times. I think we need to get down to it and work on this. Everett?
I make a motion that we designate the property, Malka of the Promenade property, Mackay of the North-South Collector Road, and to the south of the major spine road.
So that was a motion? And is there a second? Yes, I'm sorry, designated as.
Designated as shown in Rob's drawing. So it's not the area within that yellow circle around.
Is there a second? Second by Tova.
I'm guessing that's about 190 to 200 acres. As reflected in Rob's plan. I like the fact that it connects to the research park. I like the fact that it's adjacent to the high school, and it has a very small but some employment center and neighborhood center. It has that on the neighborhood center. It has the bottom right quadrant, and on the employment center, it has everything to the south of the upcountry road.
Tova?
I understand that we are running out of time, but I worry a little bit about a land use designation happening in such haste. I mean, I mean, now we've drawn it across the three biggest drainage ways as the place to prioritize based on other things. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a fair amount of thought that goes into the original design, and I worry about it being too harried. I think it's good that the committee's open to looking at, is there some sort of middle ground here and discussing it, but I personally would feel more comfortable voting on something that was informed by. Not that I'm questioning your good thinking, Everett. Appreciate you throwing it in.
People do it all the time.
150 acres. So 150 acres.
I would kind of agree with Tova that although I'm open to alterations, I just don't think that I'm in a position where I could say that's a right decision or a wrong decision. So I think I would rather have Rory come back and say, here's what we would propose after some thought versus was probably a great idea. But I would want to make sure that we're looking through everything first before making a decision on that. It's just that we're not going back and saying, oops, we made a bit of a mistake, or it's something that's not feasible or the owners aren't interested in doing. So I support the concept. I just feel like we need more information for myself, at least.
I'd like to add another twist to this, something that, it's kind of unfortunate, but I think you still need to think about it. What's going to happen with this plan once we release it? If we were to leave this as all ag and open space, what'll happen is it'll go to the planning commission. If it doesn't happen there, in the council, it will be assigned to development, and we will have lost our ability to influence what goes in there. I think.
I guess I wasn't saying that we don't make a decision. I was kind of asking if we could get some further information so that we can make an informed decision.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if we need to think a little bit about the consequences of what will happen to this beyond as well. So if we were to leave this as all ag and open space, I'm 100% sure that's not going to survive the planning commission and the council. So a better option might be that we have opinions on it. But so Rory, you were asked to come back with options, realistic options from the ranches. Okay. So in that case, I think, should we just leave it as, for now? Okay, we'll leave it as decided. Okay, the next. The,
I withdraw my motion.
okay. Actually, the, okay, I think once you make a motion, it belongs to the committee, but yeah. So what does that mean? How do we get rid of it?
I'll call for the vote.
You have to call for the vote? Okay. Okay, those in favor, please raise your hand. We're voting on the bottom quadrant. And those against? This what? Yeah, there's a motion on the table, so we have to do something with it.
He withdrew the
You can't do
motion.
that.
You can withdraw your second. Why can't you do it right now?
Okay, got it? Okay. Okay, so motion fails. So we do have a request for Rory to come back with some options for us. The next area is Pilani Promenade, and that is proposed to go from light industrial to a combination of employment center, residential, and small town center. In the proposal I had, it would go to residential and all residential. And I think you may remember that Harry Lake said when he testified here that he would not object to that at all. So they would be interested in doing that. Daniel?
There's not a motion, is there? Is there a motion?
I can't make a motion, no.
No. Oh, okay. Yeah, I would like to see some places more open space. Not the whole place, but more open space around the gulch that runs through, and more open space in the upper right corner where the it's a couple acres of land for cultural preserve. So it'd be the southeast corner. Okay, there's the gulch. Maybe Karen, you can just take the cursor down that right there is the proposed, it is the preserve. I don't know, I don't remember the exact names, a couple acres. So I guess yeah, I'd like to see more open space around the gulch itself. How would I define that? Just a lot. And more area around where the preserve is as open space around that area on that corner. Because like Vernon said, one of the things that area is known for is its connection to the sky, what's above the night sky. I don't know what's going to happen when they build out, but you have Kulani Hakoi Gulch, and by that corner, I would just like to see more open space in that corner around the preserve and around the gulch. I know that would be a friendly amendment for anybody who makes a motion.
There's no motion. So, what's your motion? What? There's no motion. So some of the things that come up, let's see, Mark Hyde has written a lot about this, that if they do the plan which they had originally, and which is kind of reflected in this proposal see on the screen, there would be shops, commercial things facing the highway, and that would attract not just residents. They would not be directed. They would not serve neighborhood purposes, and so that would increase the traffic. That kind of thing increases traffic a lot more than it does. And so Mark Hyde's request was to swap them, have residential towards the highway, and then the employment center or neighborhood center be Mauk of that, so only serving the neighborhood. But I actually proposed making the whole thing residential, which I think is a better way to deal with that.
So, and then you get Lucy Ann. She don't like Bill nothing. So this is that whole intervening mix up, kapakai action. Took years, gonna cost money. So if you're gonna make this residential, and with the settlement and all that, took a long time, yeah. But at least no more the mega mall. So if you're gonna make it residential, a lot of those historical features going to have to go. So that gonna cause less structures on the land. I just anticipating that. So are these houses gonna be affordable, the homes? Because the costs of the exchange hand from one owner to the next owner and the settlement agreement and all that, it's all so can't put housing. He probably gonna do housing, but who gonna be able to afford to stay there? And the only cultural reserve that is what you see green coming down and then green in the corner, that's it. That's maybe like 2 acres combined, just under. Harry had 10 and a half to 10 or 12 acres in his proposed plan, his last plan. And then stipulation of order kicked in, yeah. So just something to think about, Mark's plan. I think it's workable. I think Harry. I'm not speaking for Harry, but just know the guy. He might. But again, it's gonna cost money for that housing project.
Everett,
There's no motion on the floor.
that's right.
I move small town center. The it has low to medium density housing. It has the mix commercial, residential, and the public quasi public uses.
Just clarifying this for the whole Pilani Promenade.
Yes.
Is there a second? Okay, motion fails. Bodie?
So I'd like to make a motion to, on account of what Vernon was saying, if possible, to have it residential on, and for Harry Lake's proposal of the cultural preserve to be open space.
Is there a second?
Just for discussion, yeah. Yeah, second.
Second for discussion.
So so the only open space is the green, the one look like one finger. The one look like one snake. Below the yellow, you left. It's not going up past the yellow. Not included. Just the yellow coming down. That's the only open space.
It is 2 acres.
Yeah, yeah. But what something's going to happen, right? Whether it's small towns and residential, it's going to get played out. It just my thing is the costs. It's just took time. This project and any housing use maybe what maybe even Mark was suggesting with some small retail mom pop shop that stays up there kind of thing. So I mean, I kind of like think more about it. I think some of you guys like think more about this. Um, Getting tired like a home.
Daniel and then Everett.
Okay, code for it to be all residential. Yeah. And there was a second.
Yes.
There's a second. Okay, so the motion is on the floor.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Tova.
Clarifying question, was that including the 2-acre open space or the 10-acre open space that Vernon referenced? What are you saying, 10 or 2? No, Cody's going for 10. That's what I'm.
That was prior. So with the stipulation order, it went back to the 95 original plan, which it's terrible sock. We never liked that one, but it went back to the 95. So by going back to the 95, no more than 10, 12 acres for conservation, open space. So what you guys see up there, that's what we get now.
So my main concern is kind of what Daniel was saying earlier about making sure that we have a buffer zone around the Kulani Hakoi and the cultural preserve. So having a buffer zone around those areas, I'd like to include that into my.
How big a buffer area?
Maybe about 200 feet.
Say 200. Okay. So that's an amendment, and Vernon, you okay with that?
I only say no because the guy can say no. But as oh no, what we get right now? In fact, anybody know what we have right now in place for the buffer from the river? Was it 200 or 100 feet?
Just 100
I
from.
mean, we can put up 200. We can do that, and then it's in there, and the yao is gonna happen. I mean, in the engagement, I mean, good engagements, and we see what happens. Yeah.
Okay. Discussion, Daniel, and then Everett.
Okay, the property runs along P. Lenny Highway. It would be good to have some sort of setback or open space along the highway so nothing is right on P. Lenny Highway. So you're not looking at buildings as you're driving up. So things are set back away from the highway. Would that be open space along the open space corridor along the P. Lenny Highway? Would an open space corridor along the P. Lenny Highway? That'd be my friendly amendment.
Mike, and then actually Everett was first, and then Mike.
I like the open space buffer. I like the setback along the gulch. I like the preserve, but I think this is an area that should be denser than residential. I think it should be instead of duplexes and triplexes, I think this area near the high school would be better for low to medium density, which I don't think is allowed under residential, but it is allowed under the small town center. So with those setbacks, with the open space buffer along the highway, with the buffers along the gulches, and with the buffer around the preserve, is that something you would consider?
Well, the main reason why I chose residential was um, due to residents from the area that I've testified previously, as for wanting more residential in that zone. So it's kind of why I went with that.
This would be residential, it'd just be higher density residential. So it wouldn't be as much sprawl. It would enable there to be more open space because you would go up instead of using more surface land area.
Like lateral, yeah. So you're talking about lateral. So we're not covering this way too much. Yeah, we're going up, yeah.
Right. It's easier to preserve things going up.
I think I'm just going to stick with my original. Yeah, model.
See, did someone have their hand up here? Or? Mike, okay.
I would support the motion as it is, and I would just mention that the buffer that Daniel mentioned along the highway, that was part of the original proposal way back when Branch selling the land to be developed, like go back in those days when it seemed like that was one of the original conditions. Highway. So I think that should stay, and I would certainly support the original motion.
Should we have a specification for how wide it will? Right.
So I saw the plan. So they're quite inside. So if the lots and then the sidewalk, so it's quite wide. I don't know what required buffer would be, but it's whatever you put next to the highway. It's kind of inside, away from the highway.
Brian?
So just reflecting back on some of our policies, if we go with a lower density, we're actually, I think, potentially shortchanging ourselves from the bigger picture because the high school's there, there's an employment center. So all of that's walkable, which is one of kind of our key things. So if we go with residential, we're putting far fewer homes, and we're going opposite of kind of what we're saying we want our plan to do, which is to make sure that people can have walkable access to schools and to employment. I'm torn, but in my mind, I'm just going back to our policies of what we wrote, and that's what we said we want our goals to be. So if we go residential, we're going to have far fewer people that are be able to benefit from that in that area.
So what was the alternative?
So I would suggest neighborhood center, but it doesn't really say if they can be multi-story units. So is it they can't?
Limited to 25 feet.
So I guess I would propose neighborhood center because that way it's not quite as big as the small town center, which would draw other areas in, but it still gives us a little bit higher density than residential.
So Cody, you're the owner of the motion.
Yeah, it's gonna keep it. If someone wants to do another one, they can make another motion. Model.
Did we decide on the size of the buffer, of the open space buffer, or is that not necessary? Daniel?
Well, I just wanted to add in the original plan, which came from the Rice family, that the buffer zone was going to be a vegetative buffer, lined with trees to beautify the area, sort of to soften the landscape as you look Mauka. So that is what Mrs. Rice had in mind when they proposed a light industrial park in that area. As far as how wide, 100 feet, I don't know.
Everett?
I would propose a open space buffer equal width as the Pialani Highway right away.
Yeah. Yes. I agree to that.
Tova?
While we're buffer chatting, I just want to throw out the reminder that we've had multiple testimony about needing that also as a walkway to connect people who are living in those neighborhoods to the school there too. So hopefully that designation width that you're suggesting, Everett, would accommodate multimodal trail.
So it looks like 100 feet for going with the width of the highway.
So the owner or the representative, so he bought into the part where the front portion sidewalk, and then for me talked to DOE about extending Kulani Hakoi Bridge as a pedestrian cross on the bridge outside of the roadway, because it wouldn't take a whole lot to extend Kulani Hakoi Bridge for pedestrian crossing anyway, because you can't cross the highway. And in relationship, that would fall into the Pilani Promenade project with the sidewalk leading up to that crossway.
So Cody, are you okay with 100 feet as the open space buffer?
Yeah.
Okay, more discussion? Any objections to residential and with the larger open space area and also the open space corridor along the highway? Okay, so we'll have a vote. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And those against? And abstaining? Wayne abstained? Okay. Okay. So we're done with all the explicit large things that changed. Hang on, we're not packing up quite yet, because I just want to ask if there are any of all the other ones seem to me like they're very straightforward, like going from hotel to resort hotel, going from multifamily, single family to residential. So are there any issues with any of the other proposals for this sub area?
Where's the resort hotel?
It's the brown, yeah, that one.
The old Maui Lu?
Yeah. They're all existing, so there are no changes in what their current use is. Any objections?
So moved.
Moved by Everett, second by Jennifer. Any objections? Okay, so we are done with North Key, except that we have to get back to it for the most important, largest chunk of it, when Rory has some options for us. And Rory, do you think we'll have that by next week, or should we schedule it for further in the future? Okay, so let me know. You need to let me know by tomorrow morning, though, because we need to decide on the agenda. Unfortunately, there's not much time.
Let's just say the following week, because we would have to post it tomorrow for discussion next week.
Okay, that means that next week we're off to sub area 3. Okay, closing the meeting at 9:01 p.m.
If you